And we get to jump in with one of the more explosive duos on the day right now, Miro and Duke. Taco, I'm sure you've had a lot to think about with this duo, as we had a segment specifically focused on these types of teams that just have to perform well, but not just well. We're talking like top 10 well.
Yeah, because they want to ensure, as far as semis are concerned, that is essentially what Duke and Miro are initially tag teaming up here for today. They were originally just competing to try and make it into lower brackets. If they manage to find themselves confirming a top 10 placement on today's leaderboards, the series points that they're awarded might be enough to lock them down for the upper bracket. But I almost feel like that's the duo that might have been the origin story as well for why there was several different teams essentially switching up, because Dukes and Noxy, they really seem like they had gotten off to an impressive start, but it's almost as if once that honeymoon phase, you know, started to wane a little bit, you could tell that Dukes' eyes starting to wander, wanted to get something new, something fresh, something familiar even, goes back to his ex Miro. And it is interesting because they're both such prominent players in the North America scene. And to see them here today, currently in 7th place of the leaderboard leading into this match, it is definitely a much bigger message than what they were sending during opens, because their opens was quite the struggle.
Yeah, I definitely will say that I think the evidence is there to show that Duke was the epicenter of the problems that kicked off in NA, with all the teams starting to shake up and look for someone as far as a new duo was concerned. And look, he found one of the best. He found Miro, who, by the way, performed extraordinarily well in the final moments. They even pushed him here to this stage, the round 4 of this qualifier right now. So they're actually here off the backs of his duo right now. Miro, who has been playing well. It looks like Duke is finally stepping up right now and fulfilling his role here as a partner. He's got 2 elims. Take a look here. So far, though, the stats are showing us that the eliminations are occurring in the early game. So this is a team that's having a bit of a hard time, bit of a more difficult time making their way to endgame and securing eliminations, where normally you would see Miro kind of take care of that, right? Like as a solo, but you know, the truth is you got to get him there first.
And not only that, but I also do think that from that initial point and highlighted earlier on, their dropping point, that east part of Classy Courts in between Coastal Comms, Slumber Yard, that's the territory they like to try and claim off their drop, and it's been a relatively hot spot for other teams to contest. And so that could also be a contributing factor for as to why that team isn't necessarily as stacked as you would expect them to be for all of their experience at this point. But if there's a team that I would expect to be able to come back from a scramble situation, it is definitely Dukes and Miro. But, you know, another point I want to make here is Chubs Avivv. Again, one of those teams that felt the repercussions of that Dukes-Miro Wombo combo. Chubs and Avivv now combining, and all of these teams seeking to find a better placement here in Week 2 than what they did in their Week 1 performances, because they want to ensure that they maintain their new duo status to compete through semis. But just knowing that you're essentially trying to play for lower bracket, Monster, it's got to wear on the mental.
Oh yeah, definitely. Pressure is totally on. Take a look at this. Asian Jeff and Oliver OG fell a little early in the last game we were covering, and they just so happened to catch this follow-up queue. We'll see how they perform here against this caliber of the lobby. Bark and Pause as well. Be one of the few teams that we saw drop there. What in the strategy? Are we going for the
level 99 fishing, I think?
Are we going for the heal off right now? Like, they are really setting it up.
Well, with the way that the zones have been pulling today, MDF, towards that western side of the map, they've been a little bit northwest even, a lot of times falling around that Karen's Crossing, Underworld, Grimgate, Coastal Columns area so far today, at least from the lobbies that we've been able to spectate. It doesn't surprise me that Pars and Baka would try to establish this hoarding of fish, just true fishermen of the lobby here. Plenty of options as well, and just trying to stack all of their heals in one place. And again, Vivid asked me earlier on, would you rather deal with Peterbot and Pollo or the zone pools over water? And honestly, probably the zone pools over the water, man, because Peterbot and Pollo, it just feels personal. You know what I mean? Like, that's a duo where, like, if they catch sight of you, like, they're not going to stop chasing you until they eliminate you. That just feels so personal after a certain point.
You're not making that. You're just not making it.
But if I'm pars with the fish, you know, surrounding the water, who knows? You got better odds there for sure. Some rough zones though for a lot of these teams to deal with today.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a fair shakeup of some difficult ones. Hopefully this is the worst of it. For Bucky, not so much min-maxing as we've seen from, of course, Bucket and Pars there, but it's Okus and Bucky here who are set up. Bucky's got the low ground. Okus got a little bit of a position up top. Basically just a fishing rod short of getting their resources up and going. Snacky and Sonetto are also in this game. You just take a look at Day and Source. This is a very exciting team. We've seen them have their big moments here today, but they kind of have lost momentum, if you will. So we've gotten into the mid position here in the tournament. That is something to consider, y'all. For those of you guys watching, you have 10 games to squeeze within this 3-hour window. We're already halfway through that, more or less. We're actually just past the halfway mark. So time is ticking here, and rounds will start to run thin. And more importantly, if you don't optimize, if you don't make the best of them, you'll find yourself with a lot of games and not enough points.
The point spread definitely a little bit tough there for Day and Source, but to contrast that, Source had one of the best loadouts that we've seen on him all day today. And for the first time ever, they had a little bit of a lull in the action, right? They got a chance to kind of pause and breathe. We've seen them so on the go here today. It's been a lot of high-octane action, essentially. So Source and Day just kind of taking a moment to collect themselves in this lobby could be the kind of chance that they needed to essentially build that momentum back up.
I just wanted to say that was a fun little detail about Avivv. Last week, I know I was trolling by saying Avivv would have hit that shot. No, literally, I think the stats point in that direction. Impressive. There's so much to highlight, right, when it comes down to each of these different players, different duos, different skill sets. See what Vanillas and Convicts got going on right here, though, from the back side of the rotate. Wow. Oh my gosh, a lot of teams camping this general area here, waiting for the rift to go off. It's so very interesting how different the pacing is in a game like this versus when, you know, we just came off of the heels of like a Peterbot and Pollo who don't stop moving. They do not stop fighting, regardless of the zone, regardless of the situation on hand. It almost makes you feel like everyone's playing for something different.
I like this, though, for Source and Day. Taking advantage of that rift, able to establish a nice little point of action on top of the hill here next to the windmills. Quanti and Byla directly behind them, however. Also getting to take a look at Sparemo and Taki. So they're recognizing the fact they're going to have to get a move on soon enough. Granted, the Underworld Dashes being present might make it a little bit easier for them. But Vanillas and Convict, it has been all under fire since they rifted in. And they've still got plenty of ground to cover. Flowberry Fizz running incredibly low here for Vanillas as well. So they won't be able to be super dependent on it for every single one of their rotations unless they're able to find a good refresh later on.
It's crazy. This looks like all the teams that landed from the Rift, by the way, are all in shambles and below the Storm Surge. And this is what happens when you play super slow. You wait out rifts, right? All of a sudden now you're in this problematic section of the map because all of the teams are very much passive. But for Ploufft and Joe, they're going to be the ones that at least come out on top for the first duo there and find themselves a max material. Seems like a good, healthy subset of heals to take for the road as well. So it's not all bad here so far.
Could definitely be worse, but again, such a long span of ground to cover. And even with those underworld dashes, these teams that are already established on height, these teams that are already inside of zone, looking at the likes of Snacky there on the ridges. Xanda, Lawrence, meanwhile, dealing with Asian Jeff, Oliver OG. You can't expend too much time, though, on these box fights. If you're not inside of zone already, you're just going to get held up by the rest of the lobby if you spend too long in these engagements.
There's a lot going on here. These teams below the surge. They only have a single elimination. Shots are coming in from Oliver OG and Asian Jeff. They are the ones who get punished first, but they do trade the tags there. It's not going to last very long, though. The numbers lagging behind just a tad bit there. And Xanda's fresh walls get targeted. Lawrence, the veteran here, have to fend for himself right now. And you hate to see it go down like this. All these material count, these extra heals, everything done almost perfectly except for the activity against other players.
And that's exactly
a tough one.
What I was trying to reference, but again, it's the nature of the game sometimes. A little replay action here. Peeking back in with Miro and Duke and Miro. I mean, and yeah, if you're talking about them being an elimination machine, with aim like that, it's for good reason. Miro just so dependable when it comes to locking down his shots.
Pars and Baka, one of the last teams to rotate from the last zone. You can see the damage that had on them. They touch down late, they lose Baka in the forced exchange here to try to get above the surge. Pars now has to be careful though. Teams all around him here. He tries to do it again here. Bila cooking here. The edge of the storm as well, playing the gatekeeper right now.
Frenziato definitely getting a couple of tags. Nothing that Bila seems like he wants to fully commit to just yet. Seems as though Bila and Quanti are definitely content with their current position. Pars, on the other hand, again, just doing everything he can to try and squirm his way into the safety net of zone, but every direction, just gotta be so paranoid at this point inside of the mid-ground layers. If any of these duos recognize the fact that there's a solo lurking nearby, they'll pounce immediately into his box. Miro, meanwhile, getting a nice little refarm on some mats. Pars, again, so incredibly low, just doesn't have it left in the tank here. Finds his wall getting taken and just not enough to keep it going, but there's still another lobby, still another chance.
Nope, missed the tag that mattered most right there. And you know what? This game's actually pretty exciting if you think about it. We started this off with 3 out of the 4 duos we highlighted at the top of the event tonight that are new duos that have to perform well. Miro and Dukes, of course, being the pedestal of the bulk as far as the performance is concerned right now, and damage was looking pretty solid there onto Bucky and Okus, and actually Okus ends up paying for it as another team jumps in, puts their opinion on top of things, and now Bucky is left by himself. More pressure from another duo down low. This is not looking good right now. Chubs and Avivv still up 8 eliminations. They are right into the conversation right now.
Definitely looking pretty solid as far as their loadouts are concerned as well. Chubs, Avivv just attacking the same wall, trying to see if they can apply any further pressure before they begin their own tarp forward through that mid-low ground territory. And Duke and Miro, though, front side of zone, completely low ground. Xavi and Neko in the opposite direction, though, playing that high ground currently is Miro and Duke. I mean, Miro is definitely a player that loves to try and control the low ground, just so aggressive with it as well. Asian Jeff, Oliver OG fending for their lives currently, and they will successfully push back onto Curse, but damage isn't done just yet. Bila, Quanti, they also want to make their marks in this lobby. Unfortunately, Bila will have to do it alone as Quanti goes down. Flopper has been dropped, and Bila will at the very least be able to pick up the medallions, but at the same time, that agility is speed. Or the aspect of speed, I should say.
Oh my gosh.
Could be problematic.
Bila found stiff down to the low ground there. I was going to say, I was just so distracted by Asian Jeff and Oliver for a second. see Byla in the corner of the screen catching a massive elimination there. Meanwhile, high ground, those Xavi and company setting themselves up to potentially win the game, but Byla has to clutch this out right now. He, of all the duos that were shaken up, jumping in here that need points, is the furthest below as far as points are concerned. This is big right here. Top 10, every single placement point matters, but eliminations are worth just as much too. Many players here surrounding Agent Jeff and Oliver OG though. They're looking, where'd that guy go? He slipped away somehow. Meanwhile, Chubs and Avivv still getting active here. That's their 10th elimination. That one's on to Duke.
Chubs probably pretty pleased with that one. Asian Jeff Oliver OG though, eliminating Day and Source. Massive refresh, one that they desperately needed to keep this lobby life going. But Miro solo directly above Oliver OG and Asian Jeff, trying to hole up here for a second, wants to get reloads, make sure that his weapons are good to go. But Asian Jeff, Oliver, they're gonna get spotted out, instead pressured by another team. It's Chubs, it's Avivv, extending another 2 eliminations in their favor. 12 in total as Byla now trying to escape their walls, but as a solo versus the likes of Avivv and Chubs, it's just not enough. Miro still looking to play spoiler there if he can.
So I'll be honest right now, XD right here has a good amount of heals, but I don't think it's going to be enough to survive the storm here for much longer. He's going to jump on in. Xavi and crew should have honestly cake-walked their way through this victory royale, and it could just be because all the other teams needed that much more activity in order to perform and get up to the top of the standings. But Avivv might have just gotten away with murder. He snuck his way into the storm when Xavi jumped down onto XD on high ground. You have Neko still healing as well. I mean, Taco, it's a coin flip at this point. Who exactly has more heals? I don't know.
But for Neko, I'm having to believe that they probably ran out. Xavi seems to have made the call, though,
Flashes.
for where Avivv might be located. Avivv still trying to just kind of stay poised.
Oh, he got found out. He's in the box. It's going to be a 1v1.
Oh!
Avivv hits the tag there, Taco, in the end when it mattered most.
You really thought that's basically what Avivv said to Neko, but a pretty valiant attempt, though, from Neko. You could tell that they definitely did not have the heals to match what Avivv was working with. That's why we saw them drop from that safe position all the way up on the high ground. They knew they had to engage if they wanted any chance at winning this lobby.
Take a look, 6 HP, a singular moment away from it being completely wrapped. And Avivv and Chubs do it again. Zeke, catch me up. What does this mean for this fresh duo right here?